So tell us some things that black folk don't do.
Black folk don't do whales.
What do you mean by whales?
Saving them.
Well, a lot of black people don't really take vacation. They don't relax. They don't know how to.
Black folks typically do not clip coupons to save money.
When they say black people don't talk proper, and some do, some don't.
Sometimes substitute black for lower class. They're smashed together and they're not the same. And so you get kind of confused at what you're looking at and why things are happening in a particular way.
Black people don't go to therapy.
Black folk don't go to therapy. This is the one I've been waiting for.
It's certainly a fact, percentage-wise, that black folk don't use therapy nearly as much as the average, and certainly as much as white people.
I think it's a generational thing. My father, when I told him that I went to therapy after my mom died, therapy, I tried to get him to go, therapy, black people don't need therapy. That's for crazy Jews like Woody Allen. Okay?
Therapy is a very New York City thing. People go to therapy here. And I think that black people go to therapy too.
Black folks do not go to therapy because who wants anybody sitting there telling them what's wrong with you or what you should be doing, or basically just sitting there talking to somebody you have no idea out of the wall, just telling all your problems in.
But I can understand that black people probably don't go to therapy as much. That's one thing I might actually be like, no, black people don't go to therapy.
I believe black people unfortunately experience a lot of emotional depression and just deal with it themselves and through family and then overcome it. You know, I don't think we can afford the payments and whatnot for that kind of therapist, psychiatric care.
The idea of therapy as something white people do, or something that's expensive, or just something that's not culturally accessible or even acknowledged, as I have some experience with the truth of that in my own experience in the black community.
I think it's from the medical deal and not trusting white doctors, and just the whole idea of you have to stay strong and hold it in, especially for men with the whole masculinity deal, you know, because you don't want to be a pussy and you don't want to be soft.
You want to stay strong and be masculine, and therapy is sometimes seen as a sign of weakness, and you couldn't handle it, you couldn't cut it.
Depending on who you talk to, you better not admit that you're going to therapy.
I'll admit it, there was a patch where I sought therapy and people looked at me like I was crazy. Like, don't you have family to talk to? Or why can't you just deal with it? And when you bring it up to family members who might benefit from the therapy, they just say no. So I would say for me, I was open to it, but the black folk I know, not so much.
When I told my father I was going to therapy, he just, turned 8 shades of white. He couldn't believe it. And when I tried to get him to go and my sister to go after my mother died, he absolutely refused because he thought it was a complete waste of time.
In my own family, therapy, was not talked about very much. I didn't know people growing up who engaged in therapy. My mother, who had a very, very rough childhood, kind of pointedly didn't choose to go to therapy.
It was like this taboo thing for me to be in therapy because I definitely talked to everyone and it's like, man, therapy saved my life. I was like so nuts. I was like on the verge and, I told everyone, a lot of people were just like, you shouldn't tell people that you've been in therapy because you're automatically looked at as being crazy.
Well, so when I was in therapy, there were some people I would definitely share with other people who were in therapy. But some people who really didn't believe, like I have a friend, she's in her 80s. She's my next door neighbor. I love her. We've been friends for like 40 years. I would never tell her I was in therapy. Because, like, what you doing that for, baby? You know what I mean?
My therapy happened after Katrina, so it became a little bit more socially acceptable that I was in therapy because I'd been through a national disaster.
I used counseling after my divorce and was going through a lot of tumultuous emotions. It was never something that I needed to be convinced of or something I needed to convince others in my circle of, influential loved ones that this was the right thing to do. Yeah.
I was going for my master's in counseling therapy, or psychology actually, after my psychology major. So I was kind of into it, but to be honest, after a while, I found a lot of it to be, for lack of a better word, BS. You really can get a lot of therapy from your friends and family. So I know there's a lot of psychoanalytical people that would disagree that you should talk to your family and friends, that the therapist should be neutral. But again, I think that's a cultural thing. I think most people think you should trust your family and friends. That's where you get most of your therapy from. There's also ways, I personally believe, that you can heal yourself. It depends on the issue. If you really have a bad issue, therapy might be good.
We don't talk about things a lot of times, you know? And I don't know if it's, we don't know how to verbalize. I don't know if it's that. I don't know if it's that you just feel that, you know, if we lived with things all these, you know, all these like centuries or whatever, why we got to start talking about stuff now? Maybe that's how we're thinking.
We don't need therapy. We survived slavery. No, you didn't survive slavery. Our ancestors survived slavery.
There is a larger, sort of more ancestral, I'm going to use that word maybe a few times, this idea that black people as a people are heavily abused, have gone through major trauma, and collectively haven't dealt with the ramifications of that, of our own upbringing in this country. There are a lot of negative effects of not having fully acknowledged that. And I think there might be some translation between that collective absence of therapy and also the personal absence of therapy. We're strong people, maybe there's a religious component for those who are really in the church that, you know, God will help handle this.
When I spoke about it to my grandmother, her response was, now why you didn't just pray on it? So it's like, my problems, I need more than prayer right now. I need to really talk about it.
I think that's a big part of why black people don't go to therapy, because they have church. And you are supposed to go to this place once a week and let go of all of your stuff there. Even though you're not having a one-on-one with anybody in particular, but a preacher standing up there and it's like, this is what we're going to talk about today. And if you've got these feelings or these problems, then scream and shout and let it go, and we'll sing songs and we'll dance. And then, hey, everybody's okay and you're absolved. And then you go home and you feel like crap.
Which is new, and there's just no example to say, I did it and it worked for me. We just say, well, crazy Uncle so-and-so, he just deals with it the way he deals with it. Oh, well.
It's kind of being seen now that, yeah, we can snap too. It's not just white people, you know. It's like we all can snap. We all kind of need somebody to talk to, you know. We don't just handle everything.
We just probably have nervous breakdowns all the time, whatever, and just actually struggle through it. That's what black people do. You know, keep it moving.